Castlevania, Nocturne has been out for over a week now. Thus far, the audience score for this show has been relatively mixed. This is disappointing as I am a massive fan of the original Netflix series. I thought the first show was close to a masterpiece but was unaware that Castlevania was also a video game with long-standing lore dating back to the 1980s. With this knowledge, I understand why some people might be upset. If you grew up with the games and know the characters one way and then see them come to life completely differently, it is understandable why some might be upset. However, Netflix is not trying to target the video game audience. Instead, they are going after a completely new, more casual audience introduced to the IP for the first time through the series. This is where most of the disconnect for the show comes from. Those upset with the series feel that the IP is not being respected. People like me who are unaware of the video games or the deep lore seem to enjoy Castlevania. Despite the backlash for the show, only time will tell how well the series will do. Unfortunately, people who gave this series a low score on Rotten Tomatoes are likely not in the majority, and thus, we won't be able to tell the series' success until viewer numbers are shared. While Rotten Tomatoes reviewers might not be in the majority, they are still a valuable indicator of what is good. Sadly, the same cannot be said about the critic score on the website. It should be no shock that not every journalist agrees with this sentiment. Forbes states that viewer scores are entirely useless. According to them, we should listen more to critic scores instead. They might call viewer scores useless, but many people would argue the same for critic scores. Unfortunately, these online critics have become highly unreliable. Currently, Castlevania, Nocturne is sitting at a score of 100. No matter how good you think this series is, it does not deserve a perfect score. I did think the first series did come extremely close, but there is no way that every critic unanimously agreed on the score. Usually, there are at least a few that feel a bit differently. When it comes to critic scores, Rotten Tomatoes has always been a bit unreliable. It was recently suggested that some studios approach these critics and offer them money to score their series or movies. While user reviewers can also be compromised, it is still considerably more reliable. Anyone who thinks the latter is useless is why critics are so distrusted these days. Many of them have internal tick boxes that they use to measure a piece of entertainment. If the show they watch does not meet a particular social or political standard, they will dismiss it with a low score. It should come as no surprise that Forbes, in their article, makes a bunch of crazy claims about why fans are so deeply divided on the series. They cannot possibly understand why everyone did not think the show was perfect. Clearly, there is only one explanation for this, and that is racism. If you did not like Castlevania, Nocturne, you are the worst type of person. But let's break things down a bit further. Forbes, in their article titled, Netflix's Castlevania, Nocturne, again proves the uselessness of user reviews, claims they simply do not understand where the user score comes from. They cannot agree with the bad writing or bad character complaints at all. If the reviewer stopped there, I believe things would have been fine. It is fine to disagree with a user score. Clearly, you enjoyed the series far more than other people did. You gave your rating, and other people gave theirs. However, you being right means everyone else is wrong. If you enjoyed the show, there can't be a reality where someone else did not. Viewers disagreeing with your score means you might be wrong, and that simply cannot be. There must be another explanation, and the writer of this article believes that they found it. There are black characters in this series, and clearly, that's the reason behind the low scores. It is not because people did not enjoy it for various reasons. It is because you are a racist. You might think that you did not enjoy the series because it did not follow the source material or the characters are bad, but you are wrong. That is just your racism talking. In the spirit of complete fairness, there are some who did not like the series because of the race swap. Pretending that those weirdos do not exist would be dishonest. They call it woke, and sometimes that just means black or women characters. In this case, the term woke is used by some due to the race swapping of Annette. If that is the only reason why you did not like the show, then maybe there is a conversation to be had. If you are confused by the bad reviews, I would challenge you to go and read them. People are voicing their displeasure for the series very openly and honestly. You do not need to speculate as to why people did not like the show. Additionally, you certainly do not need to draw crazy conclusions. If you bother to read any of the poor reviews, the trend amongst viewers is very consistent. They either did not like the dialogue and characters or felt that the show deviated too far from the original games. Disliking the dialogue and characters can directly be linked to the source material. People grow up playing the games, and they get used to the character being a certain way. If you then see the show, you might not like the direction they are taking things in. In very few instances, people complained about black characters. Those who did is obviously wrong and should be called out. However, let's not dismiss everyone as that because a few people had issues about race. Sadly, this is always the argument for these types of people. While some viewers might instantly give Castlevania, Nocturne a bad score because there is a black person or a woman in the show, let's not pretend that the opposite is also not true. Many online critics and journalists will refuse to say anything bad about a show simply because there are people of color, LGBTQ members, or women leads. As much as we would like to think our reviews are fair and balanced, it never is. That is why a large variety of opinions is important. However, it is not as important as watching and making up your own mind. Trying to suggest that viewer reviews are useless because they disagreed with you is insane. It is also worth noting that, most times, the scores are turned around. Usually, it is critics who score something low and the audience who score it high. Whether you liked or disliked that show does not matter. However, you will have to allow others to voice their opinions as well. You are welcome to disagree with them or even criticize them, but that is where things should stop.